King Kida, one of the iconic figures of post-millennial Korean cinema. When it comes to King Kida, many would say that he is a controversial director. He was the first Korean director to win 3 major international film festivals in the world. But his work has received mixed reviews for its extreme stylistic intensity. The most notable feature of the film is the amount of violence and pornography. Beyond sensual stimulation, what does this offbeat director want to say through violence and pornography? Behind the flesh and blood and lust, we hope to find the cultural codes and systems of thought hidden at the bottom of this. King Kida was born in a poor family in 1960. Unlike some of his peers who were professionally trained in college film programs, King Kida is the one who really comes from the bottom of the social ladder. As a result, his understanding of the world and human nature has a more primitive, wild coloring. Such colors are combined with his practice of incorporating religious ideas into his films, developed a unique King Kida style. Korea is a religiously pluralistic country where religion is an important influence on social and even political life. According to data released in 2022 by the Pooling for Korean Research, half of the Korean population holds religious beliefs. Of these, 17% are Buddhist. As a result, the use of Buddhist elements in films has a long history in Korea as well. In the 1980s, Korean directors created a series of Buddhist films with titles directly based on Buddhist terms. Among them, Why Has Bodhidharma Left for the East? A Zen fable entered the Cannes Film Festival in 1989 and is an important work in the history of Korean cinema. In King Kida's films, you can see the inheritance of this tradition and his further creation of it. So, how does King Kida use flesh and blood and desire in his films to illustrate the will of Buddhism? Let's look at it from 3 perspectives. One of the widest opinions of Buddhism is that language is ineffective. This word indicates the most primary wisdom and ultimate truth obscurely. We can find the description in the Buddhist classic Diamond Sutra. What the Lord Buddha articulated in terms of the law is intangible and inexpressible. Being a purely spiritual concept, it is neither consonant with the law nor synonymous with anything apart from the law. This proverb indicates that the supreme law can only be understood spiritually. Anyone who wants to realize it by describing languages or texts will be eventually unsuccessful. Buddhism strongly believes that language does not work. That is because, from its perspective, the supreme wisdom of the world is unspoken. It will be misleading if people try to illustrate it by language. We can only understand it through sudden enlightenment. Minimizing the importance of language is also an obvious characteristic of King Kida's cinema. His films tend to be speechless and silent. In some pictures, characters are born with a disability that prevents them from speaking. Or, because of the acquired influence, they are not talkative, speaking a few lines in the whole movie. Or they are even unrealistic, failing to communicate with the actual world. Some scenes present long silence and the camera only captures actions and emotions. Bodhidharma does not help people persisting to understand the words in the classics and fail to realize the wisdom. So, what is King's hope if he similarly limits the words in his films? We can find some clues in CCTV Cinema Channel's interview. King said that silence can also offer the audience a profound sense, and I do not believe language can represent anything. I think that the expression of translated movies for Western audiences is inaccurate. Then I started to substitute lines with actions. We can interpret his sayings in this way. From his point of view, cinema can express something more essential without only depending on dialogues and lines. He also believes there is a general humanity. In other words, we can say there are some emotions and feelings that can be understood beyond the limitations of languages, cultures, and races. From this level, if we want to discover the beauty of King Kida's cinema, our watching behavior, rather than hearing what the characters say, really matters. Just as same as Buddhism belief, trying to percept what the characters are doing not just simply relying on lines and how they reflect personalities. It's vital for us to understand the characters. Buddhism, particularly Zen philosophy, views binary dualistic thinking as a barrier to understand true insight. Over-attachment to notions of right and wrong, black and white, or good and evil can trap people in partial beliefs, obscuring the true nature of reality. Kinkida's films embody this philosophy. In his autobiography, he describes his cinematic perspective and aesthetics through a process of deconstructing binaries. I don't want to grow old like director In Contact, nor would I, like director Chang Sun-woo, continue forward knowing a cliff lies ahead. Even if I tried, I couldn't mimic Lee Chang-dong's realism, and after falling to pieces, I couldn't return to trivialities of everyday life like Hong Sang-soo. I exist in a chaotic state between abstraction and concreteness. King's goal to transcend the abstract and the concrete reflects a Buddhist-like insight. King's film often portray human suffering, struggle, and redemption in unconventional ways, exploring the Buddhist notion of a reality beyond good and evil. His work frequently questions binary idea of morality to explore the impermanence of life and the complexity of human nature. For example, in spring, summer, fall, winter, and spring, the journey of a young monk reflects core Buddhist ideas. Through each life stage, from ignorance to enlightenment, he undergoes emotional struggles and reflections on life, emphasizing the inner balance and a transcendent view beyond human dualism come from self-reflection and forgiveness. In Three Arrow, King portrays a sense of detachment through the protagonist's ghost practice. Taisha goes from breaking into empty houses to learning invisibility even when present, symbolizing freedom from attachment and physical constraints, a metaphor for non-dual state. Through these films, Kinkida not only reflects the Buddhist ideas of detachment and non-duality, but also portrays humanity's confusion and introspection in the search for truth and inner harmony. In the Buddhist ideology, samsara is a central concept. Its essence is a module of life cycle based on the law of causality. In his film works, Kinkida has a subtle representation of the concept of samsara. He uses many different presentation methods, such as the recurrence of scenes and plots, the reincarnation of characters' fates, and the symbolism and suggestion of images. The film Spring, Summer, Autumn, Winter, and Spring is the most typical representative of Kinkida's presentation of samsara. The film uses the change of seasons as a narrative thread. From the innocence and naughty of the little monk in spring to the beginning of the young monk's love in summer. Then, in the fall, the grown-up monk returned to the temple to be punished after committing murders due to love and hatred. In the winter, the middle-aged monk who was released from prison returned to the temple to practice. Finally, a new spring is ushered in, and a new little monk appears, continuing the story of the past. This circle of seasons and the similarity of the story at different stages visually depict the circle of life. Pieta, the main character counter, who makes a living by collecting debt, brings pain to many people. Later, the appearance of Mother made him gradually feel affection and warmth. However, when he discovers that his so-called mother actually turned him for revenge, he falls into despair. Kondo once shattered other people's families, and finally experienced the deception and departure of his mother. In the end, he died a lonely and painful death. Like a casual circle, the suffering he inflicted on others eventually returned to himself. The ups and downs of a character's destiny and the repetition of similar experiences in different people reflect the concept of samsara. In December 2020, Kinkida passed away due to COVID-19, which was shocking and sad. But as the Buddha says, death is not a terrible thing. Life and death are part of samsara. To appreciate Kinkida's work, we should maintain a Buddhist attitude that is detached from things and not to be fettered by the complex cruelty in it. In this way, we can truly appreciate the beauty and the connotation of its cinematic art.